try. Okay, so since we're a small group, this makes it easy. We don't have to move yet, but we're going to move. First thing, let's introduce ourselves, and here's the 4 easy pieces, and I'll start. But your name, your school district, what you do in your school district, and then a personal detail. So think about that one for a second. All right, what personal detail will you share with this crazy I don't know you crowd? So let me start. My name is Jeanette Westfall. I am the Executive Director for Curriculum, Instruction, and Staff Development in Liberty Public Schools. Welcome. And my personal detail is my family. So I am a 1-year-old grandmother and with only 1 grandchild, and then I have 2 sons who are with 2 gorgeous girls that for those of you that aren't grandparents yet, just advice that was given to me 20 years ago that seems to work is keep your wallet open and your mouth shut. It's amazing, so I'm just going to tell you. Best advice I ever got. So if we could start, do you mind sir starting over here and then do the 4 bits of information, and that way we kind of all know each other a wee bit.
Tom Anderson, Blair Community Schools High School Principal. I'll stick with the family theme. I got 3 girls, and 2 just graduated from college and both have jobs, and the 3rd one is a sophomore at Old Miss.
Thanks, we'll keep it good.
Danny Ladwig, Blair Community Schools, Director of Curriculum, and I'll stick with family too, 2 kids, and both moving to new schools. I'll have a freshman in high school and a 6th grader at the middle school.
Rhonda Sheldon, South Page Community Schools, new principal there. So after 19 years, I finally made the leap. So.
Erin Field, science teacher at Blair High School, department head. Family theme, I've got 3 kids, going to be 5th grader, going to be 3rd grader, and going to be in 1st.
Darren Steiner, Superintendent of Learning Community Schools, family, 5 kids, 1 granddaughter.
So you understand this?
I know what you're talking about.
Casey Ring, I'm Curriculum Director and Instructional Coach at Tri-Center Community Schools in Riverside. And I have 3 kids, and they are all left-handed.
Oh, that's super.
We're both right-handed.
Chris Stockdale, middle school principal, Blair Community Schools, 2 daughters. One's a junior, or senior now, I guess. Boy, I blew that one. In high school, Blair. I have a junior in college.
I'm Mark Dickinson. I'm the district technology coordinator in Blair. Been there 100 years, and I have 3 grown children, and we're, keeping the mouth shut is probably the hardest part for me on that piece. But
Oh, it's not easy, for sure.
Hi, Baba Peñas, Blair Community Schools, Activities Director, and I have 2 kids, Bo and Ben, 5 and 3.
Devin Laughlin, I'm a communications specialist at Green Hills AEA, and I recently got engaged this spring.
Marissa Pazano, an English language arts specialist at Nebraska Department of Ed, and 4 at home, 4, 7, 9, and 13.
I'm Angela Daigle. I'm with Miller Public Schools. I'm the Library Services Department Head. I have a blended family of 7, 2 grandchildren, and 6 granddogs.
Nice. Well, welcome you guys. One of the things I wanted you also to know, in addition to you're about to move, and is that you're going to do a lot of talking amongst yourselves today. I'm going to give you a little bit of Liberty story along the way that'll just really, I hope, entice you to connect with me later or with my peeps, who are all 3 in this room. You bet Eric, you were here in the first session, and then following Eric is our OER coordinator and a social studies teacher at the middle level, and then Julie will follow me, and she is a science teacher, a biology teacher in our school, at the high school. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about 4 topics, so I'm staying very true to the description. We're going to talk about launching your district if you haven't already, some things that we went through and lessons learned. We'll talk about some curriculum challenges, so hopefully that fills your bucket if you're a curriculum person in the room, and just some things to think about in respect to our, we can give you some advice in our 2-year journey. The policies and procedures, so for the superintendent and then the principals in the room, really how do we go about setting up some of those very special things, like when your board policy says everything that you make while you're employed by us belongs to us. So that's a really interesting conversation. And then last but not least, so if you're not buying textbooks, what are you doing with your money? So we'll talk about a little bit of the innovative practices that we've done with our funds in Liberty, and just maybe give you some ideas or some people to prod when you get back home today or tomorrow. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. First of all, we're gonna create some small groups, and so we're gonna create a power line. And the reason why I want to do that is we're going to have groups of 4 and everybody can own a topic, but we need to talk about your level of confidence. Let's put it that way. Your level of confidence with the Go Open process or talking about OER. Okay, so your level of confidence. Let's start over here with the least confident and wrap around this way to the most confident. So least confident, you can leave your stuff at your table for the moment, right? Least and most. Let's wrap.
Sorry.
It won't be a whole entire room, but you know. Least to the most.
I was talking about OER.
Oh, I.
If you're in the middle, that's cool. Okay, least to the most. Okay, so the most. Most confident, got it. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. This is perfect. Okay, so now we're number by 4s. So what we're gonna have at each group is a mixture of levels when we go through and have the conversation. Somebody who is like, I don't really know, and then somebody who has been walking the walk for a while, so that the conversation is more blended, okay? So start here, 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3.
4. 1,
2, 3.
4.
4, and I timed that perfectly. So now let's work on the groups. So if you're a 1, right, then let's go here. If you're a 2 there, if you're a 3 there, and if you're a 4 here. So sorry to take you away from your friends, unless you remember your friends there every 4th group. Now you want your stuff, I think. Sorry, I should have. Now you probably do want your stuff. Because you might want to take notes or look up things together. All right?
I'll go this way.
Super, thanks you guys for being so flexible. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We are going to give everybody a task. So here are the 4 topics. There are, you're gonna double. And one of you is going to get to lead 2 topics. Here are the topics. So we're going to stick to those. And as we go through those 5 topics, we're going to talk about each one of them for 5 minutes. So the norm for this is that you are either going to share something or ask a question, right? And if someone at your table can hold a parking lot of those questions, either write it on the back of the paper that it is, so that at the end we can debrief any standing questions that might be in the room. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So you're going to take those 4 pieces of paper right now, tear them apart, and everybody gets 1 and 1 person gets 2. So pick the one you want to lead the conversation on. Right?
Pick whatever you guys don't want. So that's fine. I'll pick whatever you guys don't want.
All right. Are you with me?
Spend money.
And then at the very end, we'll do a big, after each one, we'll do a big Liberty share out. So I want to make sure you have time to talk and share, and then I'll give you our Liberty perspective. So the idea of a summit, the best part about it, of course, is gathering ideas from everywhere, and then I'll try to make sure that everybody understands, has an idea or some thoughts at the end that we can share our best ideas. So we did our power lineup, we did our small groups. If you could just do a quick round so you know right now who you're at the table with, just say your names, great. And the next thing then is your topic, we got that done, and well, I did create a timer, but I don't know where I put it. Somewhere. Yeah, we'll talk through and then we'll share out any big things from your table. So what I want to do is give you some insight on Liberty story about this, and then clear up a couple of things. We'll let you share out and then check your questions, okay? So the first thing I wanted to tell you about is how did you start? Well, we were asked in 2015, so the Department of Education started the Go Open campaign, which, just to be specific, is really about asking a school district to agree to some, as the Department of Ed likes to do, agree to some process pieces. And what the number one component was that you would, in a course that was considered open, that you did not buy a textbook that year for that course. That was the requirement. Well, we were looking at that for all of our high school, middle school, secondary schools, science and social studies courses. So when we started, we were really working on how do we use open educational resources to support that curriculum. When I started, we were looking at, and let me just give you Liberty's history since nobody's from Missouri in here. We are about 13,500 kids, about 1,000 staff, teaching staff, not every support. And we have about, I think at this count, about 420 plus, I'd say maybe 7 or 8 courses that we teach in our entire district. And that's including ECC, so pre-K, all the way through high school. And so the first thing that we had started with in my, like this would be 5 years ago, was really organizing our work around essential standards. So if you're a curriculum person, Larry Ainsworth is the name that you know, and Larry's work is about identifying essential standards. So if you are a science teacher or math teacher, you recognize that every year you have anywhere from 75 to 125 standards that are in the scope of your curriculum. And what you really know is that you pick and choose which standards to teach every year, you really do. Or you're teaching through a textbook, and that textbook is aligned to standards, which is already annotated at the back of the textbook. So one of the things that is important for you to understand about Liberty that may or may not change the game for you is that we are a highly effective and fairly affluent district on the outside of Kansas City. So if you were standing in Kansas City facing north, we're at 3 o'clock on the circle. And so when we started, we recognized, as the Department of Ed said, is this is about equity and making sure that everybody could have access to these. We had no problems getting access for our kids. We wanted to buy textbooks or textbook systems, we could do that if we wanted to. So why would a district that could do that, that's already high functioning, why would we drop purchasing textbooks when we didn't have to? So that's our story, not that we couldn't afford to do it. So we organized our curriculum and started recognizing that the things that we were buying were not matching the standards that we were teaching. So to get to that, you really have to have teachers understand what it means to look at standards. So this link right here, if you go there, you're going to get to our district website. If you hit this link, it'll take you to the curriculum page that we have. So every bit of our curriculum, we started in year 1 by scoping down the curriculum from 150, I'm making that up now, 150 standards down to about 40. And then they use that in a scope and sequence. We are now down to 10 or 12. And those essential standards is what we started on with our OER journey. And that's going to make more sense when we talk about curriculum, because typically I think I heard you saying that curriculum is our challenge, right? How do we get people to do that? Curriculum is the challenge. Make no mistake, successful OER starts with understanding how curriculum works. All right, so if you can tie those two things together, then you will absolutely be able to launch using or going open in your district. So let me just preface with that. So that's number 1. Number 2, we focused on instruction, not resources. So let me tell you my story about that. Brought in all secondary social studies over here, all secondary science over here. Brought in Diana Laufenberg, if you don't know her, she's a science or social studies guru, OER. She's online, she's got a TED Talk, she's all about digital curriculum content. Brought her in to work with my social studies teachers, because if you're a social studies person, especially at the high school level, you are not going to talk to somebody who isn't a content specialist. Brought in on science, we brought in the Buck Institute, and with them, we worked on PBL. So science teachers worked on instruction and problem-based learning. Social studies teachers worked on curation and creation of OER. At the end of that year, with a content specialist in one place and PBL being taught in the other place, they all bought textbooks and they all went OER. The very opposite of what I tried to get to happen happen. And the reason is because we focused on content and their confidence level in their ability to find resources to support was low. Even with an expert in the room who was showing them day after day how to do it or how to create it, it was always about the instruction. When the science teachers started creating PBLs around their curriculum and bringing it together, they recognized their book didn't follow suit. And so they took away the book and started bringing in the OER to support it. So just a reminder, this was a huge learning step for us. After this, every content area, we started out with 8 courses that were Go Open. We are now up to 55 in 2 years, well, 3 years, starting November of 2015. Okay, so this November will be 3. Third step, we provided the support. And so when I say that about support, the beauty is I got, and we'll talk about this in policies and procedures, but I got permission from our Board of Education to use the money we didn't spend. So instead of keeping it, the board didn't keep it, they said, I'm gonna spend $168,000 on science textbooks. If they don't spend it, I'm giving $168,000 to the teachers, and we did that, and I'll show you how we did that. So it was a tremendous, and by the way, we can't spend that money. It's almost impossible for the teachers to figure out how to do it. Just want you to know. So it ends up being a win-win. They get everything they want, and the board saves money. Okay? So we'll talk about that in the last part with everyday practice. But this will take you to our OER curriculum courses so that you can see the ones that we have, and then you'll see quite a few that are pending for 2018. All right, now let's do a share out all the way around. And the person who has the ticket, you can either share or pick somebody to share. How's that? There you go. Isn't that a way to hand it off?
We have not launched OER. Our district has been struggling with funds. And a prior person to here went to a flexible curriculum cycle, which kind of, there was no structure to when we did it. It was kind of, in my mind, kind of hit and miss. We're back to a little bit of a structured cycle again, which is good. But our problem is funding, and that's part of what we have, I think, looked at this as a possible way to help us through that. But what I hear you saying is, I think the good thing is you can invest maybe more in teacher in-service support and understanding of stuff that would be, in the whole thing's a whole lot better.
And
whether you're doing,
Yeah.
whatever, no matter what you're doing, it's better.
And while the money's tight, we're back on a cycle. When we finished math, it made me physically sick that we gave what we gave to Pearson. When those books will get old and they're out of date. I would rather, it's less even for me about money. I want to take the money and I want to do with it what is going to best impact our kids, and that's giving it to the teachers to create the best quality curriculum they can.
You're gonna love it. Like that. Great story, you guys. What about you guys?
We talked about, like my school, I wouldn't say we've launched or anything. We talked about building a curriculum and using OER as part of that. Like, just like a puzzle, you find and fit. You're not really saving money, we talked about that, you're just spending it differently. We also discussed, like, if there's so much out there, there's so much information out there, is how do you find and narrow it down to find the good or best content or curriculum for your students? And share alike, too.
Thanks. What do you guys think?
Did I get it?
Our story is similar, because I'm in the same district as the funding, so some of that is with curriculum. I've been fortunate in the 8th grade that we have one-to-one, so we use a lot of online resources, and it's also being able to get some of the resistance of people with changes, as we've always done it. I need to have my textbook, see if there's other ways to match up to the standards to show mastery and content.
You guys, after we get to the next session, maybe you want to join one, since there's only 2 of you left. And that way, it'll help a little bit. it'll give you more to comment. Okay. What about you guys? Thank you, sir.
Well, we didn't stick to just one ticket. We kind of talked to multiple, because I'm just now getting exposed to this.
Sure.
So they were talking about how they're at Blair as well, where they're hoping to get to the one-on-one. I've been in a district that's been one-on-one for 7 or 8 years. and talked about, you know, the utilization of the laptops. Are we using them to their capacity where this could benefit it much better, you know? And through my experience as a teacher for the last 19 years, like human anatomy, I kind of created my own workbook through the years just because I found college level, never could find something I really liked, so I kind of picked and chose out of that. And so I'm kind of relating that to maybe that's what this is.
Somewhat, yes.
And then as I moved on, I kind of left my resources to the gal that's coming in, replaced me, because she hasn't taught those subjects yet. And so I just kind of, through the years, electronically, I just kind of gave her my files as well, or shared them with her, so kind of relating that.
So let me just grab these for you and show you very quickly. The first one that I told you about, this one takes you to the Liberty Public Schools. Here's our story, the one that I just shared with you, but all in Creative Commons, the courses that are in. So this is a list. We moved, one of the things we did, in Missouri, we use a curriculum management system called BYOC. It's not popular outside of the local area, but it is one that we use there. In the 5 years, I inherited it when I got to Liberty, and we will end it June 30th. All of our curriculum is online through Google Docs. Imagine that. So everything that's in orange is an OER course. Everything else is, they make the decision. So we give choice in our district. They can choose to buy a textbook, or they can choose to go with OER as their primary resource. If they choose a textbook, we purchase it for them, because remember I told you we can buy it if we want. And second decision is if you don't, then how do we teach you how to budget, right? Lo and behold, teachers do not know what to do when they're given $170,000 to spend. So we are creating a really new generation of teacher leaders by training them to think through curriculum resource purchases, which makes me really happy because they've become very smart about that.
With that being a choice, is that up to every grade level, every department, every curriculum?
It is.
Who gets to make that choice?
So we have curriculum leaders so let me back up and give you our structure. It might frighten you. So let me give you our schools. So I have 11 elementary schools, 4 middle schools, 2 high schools. It's about 1,000 students per grade level, give or take. Are you with me? We have no coordinators. We have no content specialists. But what we do have is what I call kind of like a Congress. So I have a Senate and I have a House of Representatives. And here's how it works. Let me see if I think I might have a link to it coming up. So the Curriculum Council is a percentage representation of all grade levels at the table. We meet twice a year to work on understanding curriculum. So those people are nominated by percentage. So for example, if your elementary school has 1,000 students, then you get 3 representatives on Curriculum Council. If you have 300 students, then you get 1, right? So it's similar to, you see how I make it kind of congressional? Then we have so they meet twice a year to learn. They're the curriculum leaders. They get paid a $1,200 stipend a year. It's awful. I mean, for the work that they do, I'm just gonna tell you. From there, then we have 2 half-day meetings a year in addition, where these leaders lead what we call heads of state. And at heads of state, every building sends a representative. So if you are 3rd grade, all 11 elementary schools send 1 person from 3rd grade to the heads of state meeting. That's who writes the curriculum. So they organize it and make sure the work gets done, and they do the work. So everything that you see on here is completely 100% teacher created, and the decision is made. The heads of state get no money. The Curriculum Council representatives get it we pay them for basically their time off of contract for, and there's about 32, 33 at the elementary level and about 30 at the high school level. So each high school has 1 Curriculum Council representative that comes to the table. There's 1 rep for the middle level, all 4 schools. So that's how secondary works. So we do it on a dime, and that's just how, I mean, it's just how we play. So that's how this is created, and that's how they decide outside. And then they can, well, I'll show you our OER work coming up. But I wanted to give you that link. Let me show you this one. This is our courses specifically that are OER, and I think I told you we have several coming. So this year we do our curriculum, was telling me, on a rotation basis. Kind of old school fashion, but it allows you to monetarily decide what happens each year. And this year was high secondary business and facts was up this year for review. So we spend a year ahead of a curriculum resource purchase studying what does instruction look like in 2020, right? Should it still be the same as it looked 25 years ago? And if it shouldn't be, then what's different? So we talk about that the year ahead, and then they make a decision. So these are all the courses that are now going to go OER. So they just made that decision. So now they're grappling with what does the curriculum look like and what do we do with the money? Because they have no idea what that looks like at this point. But they realize that they have books that sit on the shelf that they don't access very often. That was an easy way to see that, okay? So this is where we are in our new group of courses. My favorite one, it's up here at the top, is we also went OER with Chinese 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and with Spanish 1, 2, 3, 4. So using our connections with this network, we were tied with the University of Texas to help us with Spanish 1, 2, 3, 4. UT is doing some OER work there. So that's, I mean, I'm just telling you, like, this kind of networking is what got us here. We don't know the answers, but we do know a lot of questions to ask. And we know what worked for us and what didn't. So the confidence level of the decision making is what's changing for our district, that our teachers are recognizing. We spent, and this is my favorite story, we spent $250,000 a year on Go Math. And next year we will not. It will be our first year. So we were spending $250,000 a year. We will now use an OER resource called Eureka. So if anybody is elementary, you've heard of Eureka. It's a top-rated Ed Reports, Department of Ed, Louisiana, state of Louisiana ranks it as a #1, tier 1 resource. We've watched our scores do nothing but slowly decline with Go Math. 1 year in piloting Eureka, and we zipped right back to the top. Imagine that. Is it really the resource? I would never give the resource credit for higher test scores. But it is the teachers understanding what they're teaching that the resource is helping them develop, right? So don't give the resource any credit it doesn't deserve, right? You would never blame poor test scores on the resource. You would not want to give credit to a high test scores to a resource. But what happens with the interaction of the teacher and the resource is what matters. So that's kind of the story of this one. And let's move on, okay? Because this sounds like this might be the biggest conversation of the day in the room. Okay, so curriculum challenges. So really, what challenges are you facing and where are your struggles? And if you have an answer, let's answer it. But if not, let's make sure that we leave time to get through that, because I would tell you this is a pinnacle piece in respect to most districts' success and transition to OER. All right, so 5 minutes. Have a chat.
I'm just looking at you. Sorry, I didn't get stuck with anyone in the district.
Yeah, write down your questions and then we'll have a
Yeah, we did 5, 10 teachers teaching
Shifting the mindset from curriculum and
I think the other thing,
like understanding teachers and understanding that starting last year, really identify
obviously we have a lot of teachers resources that she shows, so how do we find the time to do?
I learned a lot,
to me,
and I really like it, but the challenge was I don't
I sat through
teachers
my
get
work
to
and
teach
spend
and
enough
that's
time,
fine.
but not everybody's gonna get comfortable.
You want ways
So
to
we like
spoke that, but then you also have to do all the different books and take care of that. So we know it's never been perfect, you know what I mean?
I spent my
me,
time
it's
on
just
a
really
really
go through and see if it matches.
I also did the other challenges,
so now
just piece together. In my heart, and maybe trying to coordinate, especially with other departments in our district, there are some who are.
And there are some
That's a
that
challenge.
like there are teachers, you know, what
How do we get those people to see the benefit of collaboration? The benefit of
my teacher needs like carry
guidance and
If I was not a teacher online, that's
Or- And that started this last, so you did it the whole year. Have you seen?
So I just, I feel like there's
Been through that too?
That's exactly what I was gonna say. It makes your great teachers greater, and it makes your average teachers averager, you know? I think it requires time, and time makes people very nervous. We talk in our district about suffice. And you get the content good.
Just kind of got together.
Every year it gets better. And being okay with not having all the answers. That's one of the big things we had to talk about as we rolled out the 1-to-1 at 9-12, and then this year was 8, next year 6-7, so we'll go 6-12, 1-to-1, and then we start 5-4-3.
Yeah, that sounds.
In the next year and a half.
Sometimes it's
Was giving them
Well, I mean,
time and
changed
the
too.
license to not have all the answers before you start, you know, and being able to walk through a little bit.
Okay,
And
that's
having
my
support
question.
there
Are we
for
still
them
not
at the
sure?
district level.
Okay.
To ask questions and
I'm curious, like,
self-reflect.
are there training programs? Are there?
Instructional coaching has come in, and when we do the rollout for the elementary, we already
Because
we
to
already
me, if
have
I'm
6
fully
devices
in
in
a
every
short story of
classroom.
American Lit Book and I
Plus
can
2
access the short story online, there's my.
But as we go 1-to-1, the teacher librarian is going to be kind of a technology coach and in the classroom with them to help give them support as we transition. Some teachers need it, some could coach everybody in the school. Just goes back to that, good becomes great.
Does your district have time for the teachers?
Will be like our second year, which I would still call our first year. So they don't really understand
That's
what
exciting
it
that you
is
have
or
that background.
barely be a student process on. And there's still a culture.
So I'm in Iowa and my district TC
That would be like the way that our district, there's not much around.
This is
To
just.
get them using it. Our extra 100% we're trying to establish like an.
Whatever.
So
Yeah.
you can't assume that everybody has our secondary
Waiting for
schools
one
are not
to
there.
you think they go, well, yes, it will, but I mean,
Oh, yeah.
that's not.
Get online.
There's a conference all of it at the same time.
Most of the schools doing it, and not every school in the process is
At that point, okay.
going to be able to do it. We're trying,
And
we're
you're
working
gonna,
on.
you know, and it's been developed by your peers, that this is what
We have
you're
some
going
shared
to do.
dates and some shared sites right now. And then I think we're working on that in the next 5 years, have a
But you need to get me.
get them together a little bit.
Let them do that.
There is that background.
It's a really
We have money for
Department.
go to this event, like ever be able to have very much teachers. You know, sometimes they need curriculum cycles you can get. Lab days, like go like
Not all
just
students
have
have
like
English,
money,
yeah,
they want to keep this work and
the ones that are gonna be doing it in their class. And I wonder that there's like a.
All our teachers don't have curriculum.
We have.
Okay, friends, we can wrap up your conversation.
I'm interested.
Creating our curriculum, and so we're just kind of just doing.
It's hard to do because only one.
So I'll start with a quick overview for us. We talked about this already, but worked on making sure that you limit your essential standards. So critical component, and here's why. When you start looking at OER, if you're trying to figure out 150 standards, then what do you look for to what OER do you find to fit what? That's the pool conversation, right? So it's very difficult to go out there and swim around in the ocean to try to find things. You have to narrow your curriculum. So that decision is critical in respect to what you want to understand. So we do in Liberty like I said, follow Ainsworth's model. And one of the things he says is you decide your essential standards. And 10 isn't a magic number, it's just how many can you manage in a year. So what we call this, we tie this to our board policy, which is a guaranteed and viable curriculum. So everybody says it, but we want it to mean it. And so when we talked about guaranteed and viable, it means that in Liberty Public Schools, these are the 10 or 12 standards that we will die on a hill for. Okay? And then we will RTI them to the end of the planet. Right? So we had to figure out what we were going to do that. Everybody has autonomy in their classroom to teach the way they want, but we wanted to guarantee that when kids in Liberty Public Schools would absolutely know these things. So we used the Ainsworth filter to decide that, and the filter is in this order and is the proper order. I'm just going to tell you. It's the proper order. Number 1, life-worthy. So you pick a standard that matters in your life. Number 2, prepares you for the next course. And number 3 is tested. In that order. And let me tell you why. I don't know about your state, but in our state, we do not test speaking and listening, critical life skills. We are a district that really believes in competency and really works with our workforce in Kansas City to make sure that we are growing future leaders. No offense to you guys, but if you want to work in Kansas City, you gotta beat our kids. So we want to make sure they are the best prepared to get hired in our home state. So when we do that, it's not always tested by our state agency. Sometimes the questions that they ask, oh, wait a minute, all of last year, our ELA and math test had to be thrown out because the test was considered not reliable. So we don't rely on our state to provide that response to us. We do it for ourselves, okay? So then, we had to figure out how to do that. So how is it that you take those essential standards and then really dig in the OER to match it? You have to practice unwrapping. Unwrapping is one of those things. I'm an English teacher by trade, and so one of the funny things is it's kind of like teaching vocabulary. You know how when you say, oh, I have this list of vocabulary, and then you find this great graphic organizer that helps kids understand, like you put the word in the middle, and then you go up here and you do antonyms and synonyms, and you draw it, and then you do that to 22 words, and at the end, the kids just want to flip you off. I was a high school English teacher, so not a fifth grade teacher. So it's overdone. Well, the same thing with unwrapping standards. If your teachers hear unwrapping standards and then want to throw you out the window, it's because you tried to unwrap 125. You didn't follow the process of what is most important first and why, and then take those and unwrap them, and then take those and give them time and money to curate or create OER to match. So when it comes down to understanding it, we do something called drive-by unwrapping. As a matter of fact, Julie, who's following me, our science teacher, said today, we're really kind of following the PLTW model with that, Jeanette. It kind of helps me think about it differently. I said, that's great, Julie, what is it? Yep, left side is all about process, right side is all about content. You take your standard and you pick it apart. You literally take one. So I opened this up so I could play with you on this one. So you really open one up. Let me take a 5th grade ELA and let me find one. So you take one of these and you go through it. You put it out, and I really literally took this and clipped it out and put it on the table in front of them and said, go. So that they understood what the process was. And then we went through and we said, okay, drawing conclusions, and that's one side, right? They have to be able to draw conclusions. Inferring, so we've got drawing conclusions and inferring, process, left side. Content, by referencing technical support analysis, they've got to be able to do that. So I put it on the process side, content over here, process over here. Break it down so that you understand the learning targets, which is what you saw here, that kids are supposed to be able to know and do to finish. They find open educational resources for that, and that, and that, and that. What happens is that they can teach it whole group, but any extra resources that come in end up being around, that's tier 2, right? If I taught it once, how do I teach it when they don't get it? So now I have this plethora of resources that back up the teacher's ability because they start filling these buckets with open educational resources. Sometimes from Khan Academy, sometimes it's stuff they created. Sometimes it's they saw an idea off of a workbook page, or they saw something a teacher's paid teachers, but they could create their own. All right, so there's lots of ways that you can collect OER or create it. Sometimes it comes in, like what Sarah was that Sarah today, the keynote, right? What she was showing us today, where it comes in a package. So open up resources, we use them. We don't follow them, we use them. Just like we use everything else. We take the best of what we can find and we plug it in to this. So our teachers don't follow somebody else's script, they created their own. Because of this, our APR continues to go up. So we're already at a 97.5, look it up on our district website, right? Every year since we've started this work in every core content area, we just continue to creep up. Who does that when you're this close to the top? We do, because our teachers know what they're teaching. And the OER is aligned specifically to this content. What about the rest of all those standards? Oh, they're in there. The highlighted ones are the hills we die on, because these are the ones that follow that tertiary life, next course, or tested, right? So sometimes that tested one moves around a bit because our state moves around what they ask us. We want to make sure we do well. So does that help you with the understanding of how to solidify? Go back to this. And then last but not least, this is what we do with our money. So instead of buying textbooks, we buy time. So if the teachers are creating, or they need time, I don't need 5 of us to do this. I'll go home and I'll look up a bunch of stuff and then bring it back to the table for my team to decide if it's good. We pay them $25 an hour. Guess what? Got lots of people who are willing to do that. We cannot spend this money fast enough. So 300 elementary teachers and $225,000 a year on math resources. We tried to budget that out. I finally had to buy somebody and bring them in and say, hey, let's learn how to teach math. Start working on number talks. What does math conversation look like in an elementary classroom, right? So we brought in a top strategist to help us with math instruction to build those math teaching muscles as we're switching to OER. Okay? So that's what we use with our money in respect to doing that. Okay, so let's share out, because I know you guys have great ideas going around or good questions that we can talk about. So you want to start? Let's start here this time.
For our curriculum challenges, we all are coming from a little bit smaller school districts. So if you're trying to do OER with 10 different science courses and you have 5 teachers, how does that work?
Great question. Use ours. Start with ours. Why would you not hand that to them and say, and by the way, it's OER, so all you have to do is take it and start there, and then fix it the way you want. Start with CK12, right? So you get somebody, the state of Washington, the state of Utah, so great. Take their stuff and start there, because that's what OER is about. You take it, you own it, you reuse it, you revise it, you remix it, and you give credit where it's, whatever it says you have to give. That's the way you do it.
Another question, and this is more with my department. How do you get everybody on board? We still have teachers in our department who want to shut their classroom door and just give me a textbook and let me teach. And I don't want to collaborate. I don't want to have common things. I want to just do what I do.
That's a great question. So that one I have less of an answer for, because that's really about culture, right? It's really about a systems culture, but they're all our kids, which is what we try to start with. We have that building by building. So like our 2 high schools, right? They want to do what they want to do in their high school, and they want to do what they want to do. So we talk a lot about, are we a school district or a district of schools? And what do we want to be?
Kind of the third thing we talked about is kind of two-folded. One, how do we make sure what we're getting is good stuff, good stuff. And then 2, how do we make sure kids who are leaving our high school, if we're not one-to-one but are required to go online, maybe they don't have internet at home, how do we make sure they still have access to things that they will need?
Great.
If they don't have the resources outside of school.
So let me give you 2 things with that. By the way, those are great questions. One, the first part that you asked me, I have a quick answer for that.
How do we know that it's like?
Oh, vetted, okay, yeah. So here's my answer for that, and it works well for Liberty. When we hire, like elementary teachers, we hire the 300 best teachers that we can find, right? That's what we do. So when the content, the curriculum choices go in front of them, I trust them because they're, like, you didn't want me picking, I'm a high school English teacher. So you don't want me picking that or making that decision. And what we did do was have them look at the resources that they had and ask them if they matched. So you take what you purchased, which by the way, they all blindly accepted. When a teacher comes into your district and you've purchased a Pearson product and you hand it to them, do they question it? They just teach it. So why would you hold OER to a very different standard? Because we created it. So the beauty of creation is that they feel like they have the right to question it as what we want. I wish they had the guts to question the textbook as much as they have the guts to question what they created, right? That's what I wish, because if they did, the textbook companies would not have the money that they take from us. They would not, but we don't question it. Why don't we question it? Because we don't have this process for them to follow. When we did take our textbook and try to hold it up to our curriculum, we found out it was very flawed, right? It taught somebody else's state standards. It taught somebody else's scope and sequence when it started falling. So that's part of that vetting. So I put part of our money in collaboration, which I'll show you our contract. They must, at the beginning of every year, we pay them to review it. So here's your curriculum, here are your resources. Do they work? Do they work, right? Because OER is not, there's a difference between free and OER. Everybody understand what I'm talking about? Open educational resources, you take and create your own. Free is a link, right? So I link to something and then when I go there in August, it's broken. The link doesn't work anymore. That was not OER. That's just free. So if it's OER, that means somebody else is allowing you to take it for yourself and own it. There's a huge difference. By the way, we love free. So we also like textbooks, right? If they're good ones, we like them. What we want are the very best resources for our kids in our district. We do not, that's my opening statement typically when I go, I don't hate textbooks. I love textbooks if they're great. Are there great ones? Yes, I can give you some great ones, right? But we have to check them first. But we don't hold them to this level of scrutiny. So that's the vetting piece. I'm running out of time. Holy Moses. I only got through 2 topics.
Must be a Liberty thing.
All right. Sorry, friends, we only got to 2 topics. I hate to cut you off because I know I have tons of stuff. Can I just tell you one last thing? If you go through the rest of the parts, you'll see the links to the budget template that we have. So this right here is an example of how we budget for the teachers when they get the money. All right, and then this right here is our teacher contract where we pay them $25 an hour. It shows you the rules and the vetting is on there, who sits on the vetting committee. And then this is a sample budget from our, I think, a science teacher that shows you how she spent her money. So I wanted to make sure you have an example of that. And then the last one is everything, I can make this quick. Come on in, dude. I can make this easy. Right at the bottom of that, remember that first link I gave you?